I don't dislike Unreal Engine 5. I don't hate Unreal Engine 5, anything like that. I just think that it is overused, it's overdone, everybody's using it. Every game is starting to look the same. They're all using similar tools. They're using the same lighting. They're using the same world generation tools. Everybody's trying to look realistic, so they're using the same realism tools. And everything just starting to look the same. Let me give you a list of all of the AAA games that are coming out that are using Unreal Engine 5. And this is just some of them. Arc 2, Fable, Gears of War E-Day. That one kind of makes sense to be using Unreal Engine because I'm pretty sure they've always used Unreal Engine. Kingdom Hearts 4, Killing Floor 3, Mass Effect 5, Perfect Dark. When it comes to remakes and remasters, I don't really care about Unreal Engine. I think that's a good use for Unreal Engine. State of Decay 3, Outer Worlds 2, The Witcher 4, The Next Tomb Raider, Dragon Quest 12, The Flames of Fate, Marvel 1943, Metal Gear Solid Delta, once again, a remake, a remaster, Dune Awakening, Industria 2, the next BioShock, Wolverine, Star Wars Eclipse. Am I missing any? There's a lot more, I know. Leave them down there in the comments, what games I'm missing that are using the Unreal Engine 5 that are coming out.
Everyone loves Unreal Engine 5. Developers love it because it's easier to learn than their own studio engines. Publishers love it because it helps them market their games and allows them to outsource development. Everyone loves Unreal Engine except for us. Although it can make things
Some people are coping online and they're saying there's nothing wrong with the Unreal Engine. I don't think they actually play video games.
faster, easier, and in some ways more photorealistic, we, the consumers, have to make a lot of compromises. And the question is, are they worth it?
No, they are not worth it. I don't play these games. I don't even really buy new games. I definitely don't buy full price games. And everything being easier when developing a game, that's not what it used to be like. They used to have to figure out ways around stuff because they didn't have enough resources to make the game they actually wanted, so they had to come up with new interesting ideas, and everybody's just using the same ideas when they're using all these tools to make things easier for themselves.
Shouldn't we care what kind of engine a game is based on if it is often unplayable or requires powerful hardware that costs so much money that so long ago you could buy cooler things for that type of money? And the main question is whether this
Not only that, but you can't even get the parts because they're not available.
obsession of Unreal Engine 5 developers is destroying the gaming industry. Given that there are few competitors on the market that can deliver this level of graphical detail and technical capabilities while remaining very affordable, it's clear to see why Unreal Engine is so popular. Recently, we've seen several major studios announce that they are switching to Unreal Engine 5 for their upcoming games. For the future The Witcher 4, CD Projekt Red decided to abandon its own Red engine in favor of Unreal. For me personally, this is a rather strange decision, as the Red engine is visually superior to the Unreal Engine in some places, as we could see in Cyberpunk.
And it also allows for better mods. I don't think they actually want the modding scene to continue. I think mods look bad to a developer because, well, to these AAA developers, because that's money that they're losing. That's ideas that they're losing. They can't charge for mods if they allow mods to be free for the community to come up with.
Even the developers of the new Mafia have abandoned the company's internal engine and are creating the fourth installment on Unreal Engine.
I forgot about Mafia. Mafia is another one.
Ditto Microsoft, who rebranded 343 Industries as Halo Studios,
And Halo,
which will now use UE5 for future Halo games, while the studio abandons its own engine that they have been creating for years specifically for Halo Infinite. At the same time, BioWare is switching from Frostbite to Unreal, which is probably the best as Frostbite is not very suitable for third-person role-playing games.
What about all the racing games? How many racing games are switching to Unreal? And those are all going to be the same now. And I love racing games. I'm a huge racing game fan, but I like to play different racing games. I don't want all my games to be the same and look the same and have realistic graphics. I don't even like realistic graphics because real life is boring. Why is everything trying to look like real life?
But BioWare has much more serious problems in game development. Who knows if they will even make it to the release of Mass Effect 5. Crystal Dynamics has abandoned its own engine, and the next Tomb Raider game will also be developed on Unreal. GSC Game World also abandoned their own engine to switch to UE5 for Stalker 2, and as we could see, it was definitely a rather controversial decision. This is exactly the case when Unreal Engine really messed up the game and brought quite significant problems to Ukrainian developers during the release of a long-awaited game. And although poor optimization and bugs are, let's just say, an ingrained part of the Stalker series,
Not bugs, anomalies.
Unreal is simply not suitable for this game. After all, their artificial intelligence and NPCs use the specific technology of their personal engine, which allowed them to create unique behavior patterns that were the hallmark of the series.
Isn't Unreal Engine going to be used on the new Elder Scrolls? Is that a thing, or are they still sticking with the Creation Engine? Not the new Elder Scrolls, I mean Oblivion. I forgot there was even an Elder Scrolls 6 coming out.
That's why the well-known revolutionary A-Life simulation technology worked so well in the first part and so poorly in the second. In general, many studios are now developing games on the Unreal Engine. This trend is not a bad thing in itself, but there are some serious problems that worry me and this dog. First, Epic Games has effectively monopolized the game engine market. Monopolized? Yeah, I said that right. Every studio that switches to Unreal brings Epic a percentage of their game sales.
I don't think that Epic has monopolized Unreal. I think that game companies just got lazy and they're like, oh, Unreal is the easiest engine to use, so we're all just going to use it. And that's how the monopoly starts. That's how Steam has a monopoly, kinda, on the PC gaming market, which I get, but it shouldn't be easy for developers to make games. I don't know if that's a hot take or what.
And Epic gets control over what games can be developed on their engine. The new standards for the Unreal Engine advise developers to avoid offensive words. Now, the code should not contain words like blacklist, whitelist, slave, and master, because, you see, it can upset someone, but that's not all. Gendered words are also taboo. Hey guys, and poor man's ex are banned.
So, words are banned for an engine. I didn't actually even know this. This actually makes a lot of sense to me. That is insane. They're actually hampering creativity. They're actually shitting all over creativity by saying, hey, we know you're going to use this engine, but you can't do these things. It's illegal.
Even poor people, I can't fucking do it. Even poor people can't exist anymore. Epic officially recommends addressing everyone as they. Besides, nowadays, artificial intelligence in your games should be as inclusive as possible. Don't get me wrong, nobody is against correct language. But when a company that receives a percentage of the sales of each Unreal Engine game starts dictating how you write code, it looks like total control. Imagine a situation where you and your team have been developing a game on Unreal Engine for several years, and one of you writes a word in the code, well, for example, slave, and your game is closed. And no one knows how far Epic is willing to go with this censorship policy.
Oh, if they start it every time throughout history, it always snowballs. It always gets worse. They always come up with new rules, new things that you can't do, that you can't say. Every time. That's why you have to leave it open.
If developers do something that doesn't comply with the rules, Epic can simply take away their engine license. But this is only the first big problem. The second is the unification of game development. What the fuck is that? Unreal Engine allows you to create a wide range of games with completely different styles. For example, Sea of Thieves, which has a very cartoonish style, but looks incredibly beautiful. But then there are games like Atomic Heart or Immortals of Avium that look like banal builds from ready-made assemblies and try to be photorealistic, which they don't really succeed at. I don't think I'm the only one that noticed that many Unreal Engine games have a typical Unreal Engine look, if you know what I mean. Games that look like demos. They use the same visual style. They try to achieve photorealism in the laziest way possible because Unreal Engine...
People who complain that, oh, Unreal Engine does not look the same in every game, they don't play games. They only play the most popular games, the biggest corporate slop games. They don't play the smaller games, they don't play the demos that look exactly the same as these AAA games.
Gives a good picture by default, and developers often do make an effort to add something unique to their game. They don't try to create some kind of compositional style, or just make their game stand out from hundreds of other similar games. They just want to make everything look as realistic as possible, spending too much time on polygons instead of working on the visual style. And here we face some paradoxes.
Working on the visual style is also bad, You shouldn't be focused as much on that. If your game is that, then sure, but every game shouldn't be that, and every game is becoming that, where they're all trying to focus on their visual style, and then they're forgetting that they have to write a story and have to do game mechanics and have to have interesting characters.
Because the fact that almost all the new games on this engine look the same is the fault of the developers themselves, not the limitations of the engine. Unreal Engine does not impose restrictions on artistic expression. There are many unique games with unique styles created on this engine. As I mentioned, this is Sea of Thieves, but there are also Octopath Traveler, Borderlands, Little Nightmares, and Yoshi's Crafted Worlds.
Borderlands 4 also uses the Unreal Engine. I forgot about that one, and I'm a huge Borderlands fan. And it looks like an Unreal Engine game. It's got that kind of Fortnite vibe about it.
So what's the problem then? Well, it's just my opinion, but I think that many developers just don't have the motivation or passion to create something unique. They just take the standard Unreal Engine tools and work on the visual style minimally.
I think you're wrong about that, actually. I think it isn't really the developers. I think it's more the corporations behind the developers that are like, we need to make this as cheap as possible, as easy as possible. We need to make a game that will sell, that will make a lot of money. And they're not actually passionate about making a game like the developers themselves are, but they can't really do anything. What are they going to do? Sorry, Neversoft, we're going to shut you down because you can't make a good game. And Neversoft is just over there like, man, you keep telling us to make Guitar Hero games. What do you want us to do?
Besides, if you work in a big studio, your part of the work is quite limited. You are responsible for creating the vegetation in the game, and you, for example, wanted to make this vegetation not photorealistic, but somehow in your own way. Maybe some kind of painted, but some other guy in charge of character design didn't want to bother with it like you did, and just made the NPCs photorealistic. Altogether, it will look very strange. Therefore, studios, in order to avoid such diversity in game design, simply make everything ready-made and photorealistic. Because of this obsession with graphics and realism, we only get a superficial visual style. Most AAA developers just throw in a bunch of shaders, lighting technologies, or post-processing, even though they don't even know how it all works. They don't know how to optimize these elements, which leads to the fact that most Unreal Engine games look great in trailers or screenshots to sell you on it, but then these games perform terribly after release. That's why I'm convinced that for most studios, switching to Unreal Engine won't solve anything. The engine itself does not make a game good. It still requires a huge effort from talented people who know how to create an attractive art style, unique animations, and work on optimization and the overall design of the game.
You know what happened? They fired all of the talented people because they were too hard to work with and they were trying to make too many changes and they were wanting to do their own thing. So they got in a bunch of slaves. I know, banned for the Unreal Engine. They got in a bunch of slaves. That's probably why it was banned, is because they've enslaved people. That'll just do what they say and just make the sloppiest games possible and they all look the same. And the actual talented people are going off to companies like From Software, to companies like Larian Studios, to companies like Saber Interactive.
I am concerned that both publishers and developers believe that Unreal Engine will solve everything. No, guys. It won't. We're just ordinary people working hard at our shitty jobs to afford good hardware and your games at inflated prices. So please, try a little harder. I'm not against studios switching to Unreal, but I want to make it a real difference. It can be a great advantage if developers really put in the effort to create something special and not just use the superficial features of the engine. No doubt, the Unreal Engine makes it easier to onboard new developers, outsource, and use thousands of assemblies from the store to speed up development. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as studios don't completely depend on these factors. But something tells me that the transition to Unreal is happening precisely because studios want to put less effort into development.
True, and it's cheaper, and it doesn't take as long. They don't have to pay people as much because the features are already there, and then they can build their tools that they can use in every game.
Now, let's get back to the topic of graphics. Honestly, I can't think of a single thing in video games that I don't care about as much as photorealism. Of course, there are exceptions, when photorealistic graphics were not just an extra nice bonus to an already good game, but also had a leading role in the gaming experience. For example, Battlefield 1 greatly benefited from photorealistic visuals, as it enhanced the immersion of the game. Anyone who has played Battlefield 1 knows how realistic the battles in this game feel.
This is an example of a game that should be using photorealism. This is a great example. Games that are based on events that happened in real life, I think it's fine. Well, most games. Like, I think Call of Duty would work wonders using the Unreal Engine. I don't know what engine that they use. And this has definitely its own visual style.
Photorealistic graphics were essential for this game to convey the dramatic vision and the desperation of the First World War through the eyes of a soldier. The developers from DICE themselves said that their goal was to make the most realistic and exciting version of an alternative World War I. And the Frostbite engine has coped with this task perfectly. And in general, Frostbite, in my memory, is one of the best engines aimed at realistic visuals. Although such a powerful engine with bad developers can also turn a project into some kind of crap. Long ago, DICE proved that when graphics are backed by a creative vision, photorealism can enhance the gaming experience. But the question is, do all games need to chase ultra realism? Some of the most immersive games I've ever played use cartoon or some other stylized graphics. Just think of The Legend of Zelda or the recent Sifu. Yes, of course, there are a lot of cool photorealistic games, but if all games start looking photorealistic, won't they become too similar to each other, losing their uniqueness?
Yes, exactly. That is exactly my problem with all of these games. I hate it so much. I like to play games that have nothing to do with each other, that don't look like each other at all. I don't want to play a game that's photorealistic, and then play a game that's photorealistic, and then play another game that's photorealistic. No, thank you. I want to play 3 different games with 3 different art styles, with 3 different lighting effects. One of them may not have any lighting effects, and it might just be a straight up retro game. That's why I play old games now, and almost exclusively play old games. I haven't bought a game since Baldur's Gate 3.
Many older games stand out because of their unique visual styles and sense of propulsion. For example, From Software games. They have an extremely clear and unique combat system that benefits greatly from an engine that emphasizes artistic style over graphical detail. No Souls-style game on Unreal Engine feels even half as good as the From Software's combat system. And I think a big part of the problem is that there's some kind of innate clunkiness in the Unreal Engine code itself that prevents games like this from feeling smooth.
True. Every single game feels like the Gears of War games when they use the Unreal Engine. It just always has that clunkiness that Gears of War had of old.
If you've played a recent Stalker game, you'll know what I mean. Yes, the game looks great, and you can even turn a blind eye to the poor optimization, but even if you buy the best hardware and play with a good and stable FPS, the game still feels somehow jittery at the gameplay level. And it's not just a problem with Stalker. Let's take the recent Delta Force, Remnant 2, or RoboCop. Yes, these games are not bad. RoboCop was a pleasant surprise for me, as it captured the vibe of old school movies quite accurately. But all of these games have in common what almost every game on the Unreal Engine has in common. For some reason, the gameplay on this engine doesn't feel smooth. It's just kind of clunky. I don't know. Clumsy and slow, although the FPS can be quite good. Perhaps
it's clumsy and slow like the first 2 BioShock games. First 3 BioShock games. They all feel like that. And it just kind of, BioShock 4 being used on the Unreal Engine kind of makes sense to me, actually, because of the clunkiness.
Perhaps that's why From Software fans often can't play other Souls titles. None of them feel as smooth and thoughtful. I'm not a developer, but I think that many people would agree with me that most Unreal Engine games have this clunky feel to them. FPS games on Unreal often, though not always, have the same feeling. Think of the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Even after 17 years, this shooter still feels smoother than most modern shooters made on Unreal. To compensate for the lack of enjoyable gameplay, or new innovative mechanics, or even just an interesting visual style, developers simply use the technical progress of this engine to make cool graphics. But I want to ask you a question. Have graphics really improved that much in the past 10 years? If you look at games released 10 years ago, you'll notice that many of them can be easily confused with modern releases.
True. I've been playing a lot of games that I thought were newer than they are, like Horizon Zero Dawn. That game looks incredible. They remastered it. I couldn't tell the difference. There used to be like, you'd look back 10 years and oh my god, everything has changed. Everything looks so much better. We are living in the future. And now when you look back 10 years, it's like, oh, we're just getting more of the same games that we got 10 years ago.
There are many dumbass. There are many examples of this. Like, I can't even read a fucking easy sentence. You seen this shit? Holy shit.
I like this guy.
I'm so sorry. My camera decided to fucking die on me. As I was saying, There are many examples of this. And the average consumer has a logical question. Is it worth spending additional years of development to increase the number of polygons in each texture by 10 times if the games already looked good 10 years ago? And then another year to optimize these many polygons, when often it's not even possible to optimize them at all. Who is this really for? Right now, we are witnessing how the Unreal Engine was supposed to become the standard of the future. But in fact, unbeknownst to everyone, it is creating a diversity crisis in the gaming industry and is literally killing games.
Now everybody's trying to figure out, how do we stand out among the other Unreal Engine games? Oh, I know, we'll just add some purple. And then everybody starts adding some purple. They're like, well, shit, that didn't work. We're gonna put in some new sci-fi art style that everybody else ends up using. Whenever there's a breakthrough, everybody starts copying. I think there were too many breakthroughs and too many copies now that AAA studios just don't know what to do. They're all freaking out and losing their minds and coping and pretending that they're not failing it harder than games have ever failed before. Games are failing harder than back when E.T. killed everything. Because those times, that was just in America. Around the world, gaming was fine during those times. Now we got the whole world collapsing.
Sorry, editors. It's gonna be a tough one.
I like this guy a lot. Definitely subscribe to this guy. I got the link down to his channel and this video in the description. You better like this video, man. This one, I worked hard on this one. I worked real hard. I edited this video myself. I'm just kidding. I cranked these out one a day. Plus, I have a gaming channel also linked down there in the description. Everything's in the description, except Unreal Engine.